Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Tier 2 Building Performance Standard Advisory Committee meeting. It's 1 o'clock. We might give folks just another minute to log on. And then we'll go through a round of introductions for the Odo team, even though I think we probably interacted with everybody on this call. You probably know who we are, but it's good to see folks again. And then we'll go over just intros and then get into a little bit of presentation. But a lot of this meeting is just going to be an opportunity for updates and discussion. So thanks. We'll give folks just one more minute to log in. All right, I think we're probably good. We're getting a couple more folks logging in there. So I'll just kick it off. I'm Blake Shalide. I manage the codes and standards section at the Oregon Department of Energy. This is the Tier 2 Building Performance Standard Advisory Committee meeting. And I'll just turn it over to the rest of the team to introduce themselves while Ken pulls up the slides. So Ken, if you want to introduce yourself first, and then we'll go around the room.
Hi, everybody. Ken Davies, program analyst with the Codes and Standards team. Andrew?
Yeah, hey, everyone. I'm Andrew Johnson, also with the Codes and Standards team, program analyst managing primarily the ECAP incentive program. And I'll hand it over to Lisa.
Hello, Lisa Gartland. I'm a facilities engineer in the Codes and Standards team, working mostly on building energy efficiency technical topics. So, thanks for joining us, everybody. So Ken, I think you're ready to kick it off with the presentation.
So. Before that, Jennifer can introduce herself too, since she's on.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jennifer Villanueva, the division assistant at Odo.
Thanks, Jennifer. So as I mentioned, this is our advisory committee meeting for Tier 2 buildings. It's been a little while since we checked in with you all, but I think this will be just an opportunity for a little update, but then also an opportunity for discussion and open forum for what's going on with you regarding the BPS for Tier 2 buildings and what we've got going on. So always like to lead off with our mission, vision, values. We are leading Oregon to a safe, equitable, clean, and sustainable energy future that kind of goes along with our mission about making informed decisions to maintain a resilient and affordable energy system, advancing solutions for the clean energy transition, protecting the environment and public health, and balancing energy needs and impacts for future and current generations. Just with regard to what we do, there's a list of bullet points there that cover most of what we do as an agency, but I kind of like to think about how those apply to the BPS program in particular. And I think just about all those bullet points have some crossover with the Building Performance Standard program. It's definitely a central repository for energy data, and it will be even more as we start to gather more energy data across the 15 to 20,000 covered buildings in Oregon. Venue for problem solving with the existing building sector and its energy challenges and reducing energy in that area. Educating building owners on how to manage energy in their buildings. It's a regulatory program. And then we have associated programs like our ECAP and VERY incentives that help building owners implement projects and prepare for BPS compliance. So next slide. This is a brief agenda of what we've got. Some of it might go pretty fast, but definitely feel free to jump in with questions and discussion and kind of go on tangents if we want to. But we've done the welcome and intro section. Ken's going to give just an overview and a reminder about the House Bill 3409 requirements, specifically with regard to this Tier 2 advisory committee that has a long-term view of helping us to recommend a potential building performance standard for Tier 2 buildings in 2030 to the government, to the legislature and governor. and then we've got an opportunity for just some Q&A and facilitated discussion for a couple updates on the BPS program for our compliance portal, the incentive programs. We've got a library, increasing library of webinars and resources that are available. And then at the last meeting, it was kind of brought up briefly, but this idea for a potential hospital subgroup to think a little bit more deeply about how we're capturing energy data for hospital buildings that are part of Tier 2. So we'll open it up for any future discussion on that and see where we want to go, and then just talk about next steps. So next slide, please. And Ken, I think
Yes.
this
Thanks,
is you.
Mike.
Yep.
Just a few slides, refresher here, why we're here. We are due to go back to the legislature in October of 2030 with some recommendations regarding Tier 2 buildings, and if we're going to add any kind of performance standard to any or all of those. And the role of the advisory committee is to kind of help us get closer to what the costs might be for those eligible building owners and challenges they could face. Here we are on the timeline. Excuse me, still a little ways to go, and really at this point just kind of starting to scratch the surface in terms of data collection on Tier 2 buildings. We won't be getting a ton of that until those first compliance dates start to get a little closer. Goal highlight there on our covered buildings in Oregon. As you can see, mostly in more metropolitan areas, but some outliers as well. And a quick reminder on our Tier 1 versus Tier 2 building structure. So in terms of new stuff, we officially launched BEAM, the Building Energy Analysis Manager, on Monday. If you are a covered building owner, you should receive notification about that. We had, I think, covered that we'd contracted with Clearly Energy in our last meeting here. They're the ones who have built this software compliance portal, and it's pretty widely used. Over 35 diverse jurisdictions, including New York City. Backed by some customer service support through Building Potential staff, which is, I think, working elsewhere in the Northwest in Washington. It really can summarize the building data. When you log in, if you have more than one building, you see the entire portfolio there that you've identified. Does some nice graphical displays of where you are in terms of your compliance progress. Integrates with Energy Star Portfolio Manager, and that's where you'll be able to submit all your compliance forms and get lots of information about requirements. And I will now hand it over to Andrew to talk about our incentives.
Thank you, Ken. So a review of our incentive programs. We have 2 incentive programs. I think most of you are familiar with ECAP and BERI. ECAP is the Early Compliance Action and Planning Program, and BERI is the Building Energy Reduction Incentive. So ECAP incentivizes early compliance, offers incentives for planning activities required for compliance, such as energy benchmarking and reporting, or completing an energy audit. Incentives up to 85 cents per square foot with caps. Incentive awards are competitive, and we have 2 funding rounds. We completed the first round, and we are in the middle of the second round. Just a reminder for folks, we'll talk about this in a bit as well. If you're interested in submitting an application, the deadline is July 10th. And BERI is again the Building Energy Reduction Incentive. This is the $12 million of federal CERTA funding. It also incentivizes early compliance, offers incentives for energy efficiency measures that reduce energy use and greenhouse gas emissions, such as HVAC upgrades, caps of $50,000 and $100,000 depending on the tier. Incentive awards are first come, first served, and again, 2 funding rounds. Round 1 closed in April. Round 2 just opened this week, and I'll talk a little more about the deadline for applications in a moment. Next slide. So just a kind of a quick review of Round 1, ECAP Round 1. Again, ECAP, the Early Compliance Action and Planning Program. Round 1 opened last October for 60 days. We had $1 million available. $2 million total. I don't know if I mentioned that in the last slide, but $2 million of state funding, $1 million available in round 1, $750,000 reserved for Tier 1 buildings, and $250,000 reserved for Tier 2 buildings. Next slide. And so we received 81 applications, 27 Tier 1 applications requesting about $1 million, and 54 Tier 2 applications requesting just over $500,000 for a total of approximately $1.5 million requested. Next slide. And here's a table summarizing the building types of the 50 awards. And you can see it's a pretty good mix of different building types. We have healthcare with 12 awards. It's about a quarter of the total awards. State, city, multifamily, retail, office, schools. So I think very well represented throughout the state in terms of the property type. Next slide, please. And 16 Tier 1 awards were given for a total of about $600,000, 34 Tier 2 awards for a total of $250,000. And if you want to see the specific awardees, you can go to our blog, and the link there will take you right to the blog posting. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the round 2 deadline is approaching. Applications must be received by 5 p.m. July 10th. And if you're interested, you can find all the information on our incentives webpage. Submit applications to our ECAP email address, as you can see right there. Next slide, please. So moving on to BERI. Again, BERI is the Building Energy Reduction Incentive. This is the $12 million in federal funding through a CERTA grant through Oregon DEQ. We closed round 1 back in April. We received 3 eligible applications, and we did kind of an informal poll of some of our building owner contacts and energy professionals, and the feedback we got from why there were fewer applications received than expected was that they just didn't have enough time. They must complete an energy audit, and the application process is a little more involved, and so they just needed more time than the 60-day application window. So talk about that in a second, but that's partly why we went to a first come, first served application process with an ending date in about 6 months, I believe. Next slide, please. So the program has reopened as of this Monday. We have almost the full 12 million still available. We have 7.7 million reserved for Tier 1 buildings, 3 million reserved for Tier 2 buildings, and $900,000 reserved for tribal buildings. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, the program is now first come, first served until all funding is awarded. I would, if you're interested in BERI or you have contacts who are interested in BERI, I suggest the first thing you do is engage an ODO-approved qualified energy auditor, and then start your energy audits as soon as possible. The link to the BPS energy professionals is there, and then the application and opportunity announcement are available on the same webpage as ECAP, the BPS incentives webpage. Next slide. So now I'll hand it back over to Ken.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, just a brief peek at the webpage we have up that is where we're building our webinar library. We've been hosting those and recording them as we go at the rate of about once a month. But we're also adding office hour sessions now about specific topics like incentives or energy professionals. Got one of those coming up again next week. All those are getting recorded and placed on the website. So if you can't make it, they're there for you to view on demand. And then our last item today was, as Blake mentioned, we'd heard some interest during the January meeting about this. Hospitals are currently special tier 2 status, so benchmarking only. But I think the question behind that was if performance elements were added when we go back in 2030, do we know enough about the EUIT complexities to make a solid recommendation? So that I'm going to put my email in the chat. That's really our last slide anyway. And so if there is interest in that, folks can just shoot me an email and we'll go from there. Don't see any questions in the chat, but if people just want to raise their hand, we can.
There was one question just about where to
okay.
find the slides, but it looks like Andrew put a link in there already,
Okay.
and they're up on our stakeholder engagement website. There's a link in there. Anybody wants to go back and reference them?
It must have been the incentives that lulled everybody to sleep.
Yeah.
I know money can be quite boring sometimes.
Or they're doing calculations.
Yeah, they're completing their applications as we speak.
That's it.
Yeah, maybe you're right, Deborah, that people just want to see what other people ask and get the conversation going from there. Or waiting for that long, awkward silence where nobody says anything to be the first one.
Okay, I'll go first.
Sure.
Vin Mason,
Good to see you,
City
Vin.
of Portland. Nice to see you all. Well, I guess this is a tier 2 advisory committee, right? So is there specific advice that you're seeking or just really informing us?
The language in the rule was really about this group helping identify barriers to tier 2 performance measures. And it's not much more specific than that.
Well, it asks us what to do about tier 2 buildings in the future, to write a report with some suggestions. So what do you think we should do with tier 2 buildings in the future? And that includes not just the special categories of tier 2 buildings, but buildings that are between 20,000 square feet and 35,000 square feet. So, oh, I don't know. I mean, you could do a lot of things with them.
I also think that this group will become a little bit more lively when we have more data to show, and we can be looking at the different targets to see if they're matching up appropriately, and if asking tier 2, or I should say mandating tier 2 buildings to do anything further is appropriate or not. So we're in a bit of a waiting pattern right now.
Well, yeah, I'll just share 2 things we learned at the City of Portland. One was very helpful to have a subgroup of hospitals as well as campus institutions that have what might be thought of as like campus energy systems that are shared between buildings to try to make it as efficient as possible on their end to provide energy data that was still valuable to the city. And so I do think that's a good idea because it's a different type of metering scenario often for these campuses. And then the other thing I'll share is this feedback that I received on incentives. And I don't know if there's been outreach to multifamily buildings around this, but the initial round of incentives, what I heard is that multifamily building owners were being denied aggregated data from the utilities until January 1st. So they weren't able to meet the deadlines for the first round of incentives. So if there hasn't been communications to them that now, one, you can get your data aggregated across the whole building, and two, that there's a second round of incentives. So just encourage that to happen.
Yeah, that's good feedback. I hadn't heard that. I don't know if anyone else on the Odo team heard that feedback from any of our multifamily building owners, but we certainly have received several more in round 2 than we have in round 1. So I guess that's a good sign. But yeah, I didn't know about that. It's too bad.
I see a couple of questions in the chat that I think maybe I could answer. One from Albert, which is how are we viewing skilled nursing facilities versus hospitals? And back in October of last year, we made some updates to the Oregon Standard 100 that underlies the program. And we have these, what we call it special tier 2 categories, which originally was multifamily, hospitals, schools, university, and dormitories. But then we added other types of buildings to that, which included barracks, prisons, and where we get to your question is residential and senior care facilities, which would be your skilled nursing facilities. So those are considered special tier 2 buildings. And when people fill out, like their target tool, we're hoping that they identify that that's the building activity type they have. So when we start to collect not just the targets for each building, but also the EUIs for each building, we'll have a lot more information about what the activity types are of each building, and then we can see how the EUIs match up with their targets for those specific categories. So we will be looking, we're hoping to get down into that skilled nursing facility. We're hoping to get down into we realize that hospitals are one thing, medical offices are another, and there's a lot of other associated building types that are in the medical field. So we're really hoping to drill down and see, get a better picture of energy use in those medical facilities overall. Does that
Perfect. Yeah,
help?
I think, it does. I mean, my, it's interesting when you look at the senior living, the whole continuum of care, it's like assisted living and memory care is basically a residential building. I'm simplifying this, guys. Please don't. But like they're a multifamily building with firewalls and nurse call system, and then you get into like skilled nursing, and it's like a hospital light, in construction type and use and everything else. And I know oftentimes the different senior living categories are either very ambiguous or oftentimes ignored. And then when they're ignored, what happens in various programs, not just what we're talking about here, but various programs, we respond to questionnaires and different things, and they go, uh-oh, what are we going to do with this category of building? They don't really fit any of our buckets, right? And I think that's that's where senior living often lands, is there's no definitions around it per se, and we kind of make our rule book as it goes, which is very frustrating as an owner operator of skilled nursing buildings, because it seems to slow it down. And I don't know if it's been thought about that, in that much detail or that, granular yet, but oftentimes that's what happens to us in
Yeah,
general.
yeah, I have done work in the past looking at these different types of facilities, and it's just really complicated to even figure out if you were just like to look at a website to figure out what they are, because often there's a very blurry line between
Yeah.
just a senior, facility and a skilled nursing facility. And sometimes they have both, you know, you get moved from one section to another section, you know, as your needs change.
Yeah.
So I hear you about that. I don't know how we're going to be able to do, the more information you guys can give us when you're
The better.
submitting target tools, the better. So
Okay, great. Thank you.
so hopefully everybody just gives us as much information as they can. And that's the great thing about these tier two is like, you tell us what you've got and there's no penalty. We just want to know what the energy use is. So.
Perfect.
And then there was another question that I thought I could answer after yours. Deborah had a question when you're talking about whether tier two should do anything for compliance later on. Are you talking about regular and special tier two? You know, regular and special tier two are kind of constructs we sort of made up after HB 3409 was derived. And under HB 3409, which is the legislation that set up this program, there's just tier one and tier two. And we sort of just divided it up so that people understood regular tier two being non-residential hotel or motel between 20,000 and 35,000 square feet. And it could be any building activity type within those subsets. And then special tier two are those categories that I laid out, and they all have to be at least 35,000 square feet. So, so when we're talking about tier two, we're talking about all of those categories. So it's kind of a mishmash. So, you know, I don't, but we're going to need to address everything in tier two categories. And I don't really know what we're going to come up with yet. So I'm really hoping someone has good ideas. Does that help, Deborah?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Adam has his hand up.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I was able to follow the link to the early compliance awards and saw that it was broken out by tier one and tier two, and that there was, you know, a lot of a number of folks that were in kind of both categories that were awarded these grants. And I'm just coming from the higher ed and coming from, you know, a place with a very, you know, currently strained budget. You know, I don't know if prioritizing public entities would be possible in the future. I know that would very much help out what I'm able to do in the short term.
Yeah, good feedback there. And we did get some similar feedback from some of the other applicants and building owners. We did add a category to the competitive review to prioritize nonprofit organizations, which I'm pretty sure your PCC would be considered a nonprofit. So yeah, there is a little bit of an advantage there now for schools and universities. So it just, you know, a slightly better chance that you'll be more competitive.
Okay, yeah, great to hear. And it was, yeah, just kind of reading through the tier two awardees and seeing, you know, not necessarily public, but probably those regular tier two kind of buildings.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we did have a few, quite a few schools and universities. I can't remember the exact number if we just look at the table back in the presentation. Well, we only had 2 universities, but we had 3 schools, and so, but I'm sure that number will go up in this next round. So you can, Adam, you can find, if you want to look at the opportunity announcement for round 2 of ECAP, you can see on pages 8 and 9 the updated competitive review criteria for tier 2. No, just just want to take a look at that.
And then just
Great, yeah.
to add on to, I think your question was specific about ECAP, Adam, but on the Berry side, as far as competitive review and scoring goes for Berry round 2, there is no more competitive scoring and review. It's just on first come, first served basis. So the earlier you can get in your application, the better if you want to apply for those.
That's great. Yeah, I forwarded that information onto our capital planning because
Great.
we do have some things in the works, and I think that would be a really good use of that money.
Super. Thanks.
And then it looks like Deborah is asking for a little more clarity around the condo ownership question.
Yeah, I might be able to handle that. Your question, Deborah, is are commercial condos, if there's an HOA in charge of that building? The HOA is just the association of homeowners, the actual, or it's not even home. When we're talking about commercial condos, it's I guess a COA, but whatever. The individual owners are the owners of each of their units, and it's just an association. It's not the actual owners, and so they may sort of be in charge and set some of the rules for the building, but not all. So we really do go by ownership because that's kind of how our definition was made for buildings. Each building has to have a separate owner. So unless your building's over 20,000 square feet, it won't, your condo, if it's below 20,000 square feet, it won't be covered under our standard. And it doesn't matter about the entire building as long as there's an owners association. We do need to see some proof that there's an actual condo and a real owners association though. So in order to be not covered.
So just to clarify, are you differentiating between a commercial condos and other condos?
Yeah, yes, because we've been informed and we've seen a few commercial condos. We've gotten a list of them from that Portland was aware of, which is very helpful. Most of those, the individual units are still below 20,000 square feet. And so in many of these commercial condos, a lot of the individual condo units are not going to be covered under our standard, but some of them will be if they're above 20,000 square feet per condo unit with the, for each owner.
Okay, so at that point, you're talking about the units individually and not necessarily the building as a whole, since the condos are owned by different people.
Right.
Okay. And how would you, I guess, what's the definition of commercial condo that you're going with that's different than?
Well, it has to have an owners association and it has to be registered with the state of Oregon. I forget exactly which, there's a website where you can look that up. And what we ask for is the legal definition that sets out all the property boundaries for each individual unit. And that way we can check to make sure that each unit is, what its square footage is. So.
Okay. Wow. I went looking for information about condos because I can think of someone specifically who has a kind of a crazy condo on top of retail and things situation, and I couldn't find a whole lot in the specific documents except from the FAQ and past notes from meetings. So I was a little confused, but thank you.
Okay.
Michael, you had a follow up on that?
Yeah, let me put my hand here. Yeah, there was just discussion at that previous meeting around how that change happened without the whole group here as a making that decision together and having an informed decision-making process, and having the condos being separated out. And I just wanted to follow up on, because there was a discussion that Vin and Blake and myself would have a kind of talk about that. And I don't recall anything happening since then.
If we want to schedule a separate call, I think we're happy to. I think we the city of Portland did share some scenarios of
Okay.
like individual condos with us that we, that we kind of looked at at a high level to try to understand how they might apply. But I think it all,
Okay.
again, just kind of goes back to the situations of where we have individual condo units that are owned separately. If those condo units that are owned by individual building owners are under the size thresholds, then they would not be covered. But if they're over the size thresholds, they are covered. Essentially treating condos as if they are individual buildings, like buildings within buildings.
Yeah. So,
I
so
thought
we're
we
not,
did. I
so
thought
we're
we
not
did bring
looking,
this.
go ahead. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry, Michael. Go ahead.
So we're not looking at the common areas or the amenity areas of the actual buildings anymore then.
Right. Right.
Yeah, no, Michael, I know where you're coming from
Yeah.
because you're comparing this to Washington's.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we have diverted from what Washington is doing.
Yeah.
So we are not looking at the common areas, elevators, spaces.
Just to clarify, that's in terms of condos, you're not looking at it, but for
Yes, that's
non-condominium. Okay, yeah.
yeah, specifically for condos.
And I'm sure when we have a meeting to talk about this in more depth, we did go through this in depth, looking at our actual definitions of buildings and everything else. Our group spent a lot of time, probably too much time, but maybe not, thinking about this and trying to come up with exactly how we thought we should handle this. And also taking into under advisement what Washington State was doing. But we just felt like this was a better way for us. So.
On that note, what is Washington State doing?
Madeline, you want to?
Washington State is looking at condos. So they're looking at all the hallways. If the whole of all the common space area combined aggregates to above the threshold, then they are covered by the BPS. So instead of looking at it from an owner by owner, they're looking at it as the complete building. And if you add up all of the hallways and staircases and elevator shafts, and it's above that special number, then they're in, and if it's not, then they're not.
Yeah, and that includes amenity spaces. So we have places that will have like a large conference area, meeting rooms, etc., gymnasiums,
Right.
swimming pools.
However, I think Washington State's minimum threshold is larger than ours. I think it's 35,000 is their minimum,
20,
but I'm not
20,
sure.
20.
Oh, it's still
20
20?
now.
Oh, so, but they would
I
still
think,
be tier 2 then, right?
Yeah, it's tier 2.
Okay.
I can tell you that when Washington rules there, well, at least our experience back when I was with Avamere, which I'm no longer with, but the skilled nursing buildings at Avamere had to report, and fill out all the stuff by a certain date, right? And the applications came out, or not the applications, but the questionnaires, I guess we'll call them, came out, and it was an absolute mess. There was zero resources. You'd go months without a return email or phone call. I mean, hey, in Oregon, I trust, right? But it was an absolute mess of a deployment of a program. And I think in the end, unless Avamere's done it recently, and I left there a while ago now, they still hadn't responded because they didn't even know how to fill out the form. I mean, it was that much of a mess. So I would say lessons learned, don't do that.
I will say that as a couple years behind Washington, we're very fortunate to have that relationship, and for them to share their lessons learned, and so
Yeah.
heard, and in Oregon we trust.
I have the bracelet on somewhere. I don't know.
I don't think anybody intends to roll out their program like a mess.
No, I hope not.
Right. We're fortunate to not be going first.
I'll just tell you, it put the trust level at about 0 from day one. You know what I mean? So it was just a mess.
Yeah.
But we do see and we hear the request for more FAQ and more resources on the condo side. So I think that's something that we can take a look at as a team and get out there.
Tori, I saw your hand up for a second. Did you have something you wanted to add? Well, Tori, if you're speaking, we can't hear you, but it looks like your chat works. So feel free to maybe put a question in the chat while audio issues are sorted.
We did have a webinar on the adjustments to the standard that were made last summer, early fall.
Hi,
But I don't see that on the website right now. It's like,
can you guys hear me? This is Tori.
We can. Yeah.
Yay. Okay, I had an audio issue. I'm so glad you can hear me. I thought everyone was just talking over me like 3 different times. I just wanted to quickly respond to Albert and let everyone know that the Washington program has been incredibly wonderful. I've been working with a lot of building owners the last few months from cradle to grave, like from not knowing how to do their paperwork at all to submitting for compliance, and it's super streamlined. They're very helpful. The commerce team responds very quickly within a couple of days, and they've got like lots of forms to ask questions and submit online, so that if you're missing your building notification letter or if you need to make a change on the portal, it's really easy and streamlined. So I hear you, Albert, that it was probably really difficult at the beginning, but they've really seemed to have gotten all of their lessons learned and challenges ironed out, and it is so great because now Odo can learn the challenges and mistakes from a couple of years ago and hit the ground running.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was like the caveat I put in there. That was more than more than a year ago. So I'm glad it got better.
Yeah, just wanted to provide some feedback.
Thanks, Tori, and apologies for the audio mishap. I'm glad we got that sorted out.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I'm not seeing any new questions in the chat, but I think we can hang out for a minute or two if folks have other questions that come up or that are sitting there in your minds.
I just put a link into the presentation. Thanks for finding that, Madeline. Where the adjustments to the standard were presented.
All right, if there's nothing else, I guess we'll just end with, you know where to find us for other questions. Let us know if you have questions with the Beam software. Get your incentive applications in early, and look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Great job.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.